Good morning, everyone. Within a single book is an entire world constructed for your entertainment, which tells of humanity's triumphs, tragedies, and hopes. Books convey hidden messages which teach us how to be better people. Now imagine not being able to grasp any of those beautiful words, themes, symbolism, and vivid imagery. Everything on the page is simply meaningless, jumbles and combinations of letters which occasionally jump out at you. This nonsense is not only difficult to decipher, but just plain dizzying and overwhelming to view. All this and more was what I experienced when I tried to read for a long time. For years, I had felt insignificant and just plain stupid in comparison to my peers, causing my self-esteem to be lowered. Those close to me, such as friends and family, kept saying I was intelligent, but I never quite believed it myself. Thus, by never having faith in my ability to learn, I became dejected when it came to my education, because I thought it was hopeless. My parents decided I needed extra tutoring in addition to the help which I was already receiving at school. It was at this time that I began to be taught by Phyllis Noble. My family and I already knew her a little, since we had lived across from each other for over 5 years. Now, I don't know if it was the highway in my front yard that kept us from becoming close, but my family never really became friends, and our interactions were limited to occasionally saying hi to each other on the street. Now, it must be almost 7 years now since I first ascended those stairs to her attic-like office, but I remember it like it was yesterday. No cliche intended. My 7-year-old self was a little annoyed since I would be spending my Saturday in a building between a CVS and an animal shelter. Not your ideal Saturday morning, but I walked in and was greeted by Milo, a Maltese mix, and a kind woman with graying hair who spoke in a Bronx accent. Phyllis put me to work almost instantly as I toiled making flashcards to help me work on my grammar and vocabulary. However, I was extremely reluctant in the beginning, making each lesson unnecessarily difficult, and ended a fight with Phyllis, as we barraged each other with insults like grenades. Although, one thing I hadn't expected was Phyllis's undying, stubborn faith in my ability to learn. For no matter how much I fought or shirked my schoolwork, she always made me complete it on time or early. I had met my match. I don't know what made me want to come back in those first few lessons. Maybe it was Milo or the jar of candies on our desk that always seemed full when I arrived. But now that I reflect upon it, I think it was how Phyllis never put up with any of my shenanigans, making her the first tutor I ever fully respected. After about 3 months, when I finished schoolwork early, we often talked. She complaining about the noisy people in the office below, and me about the kids at school. From these casual conversations, we developed a close friendship where we often asked one another personal questions. One day, I threw down a book in frustration, and she asked me why I was upset. I said because I didn't know how to pronounce a word. Aha! So you were afraid of failure and the unknown. Well, everybody is, I replied. But everybody shouldn't. The only thing to fear is fear itself and what it prevents you from accomplishing, she corrected. But I have failed so many times, though, I protested. Andrew, the only reason why you fail is because you have admitted it as inevitable. Never look down when you cross the rickety bridge of hope, or you will fall. After this conversation, in mid-second grade, I decided to roll up my sleeves and claw my way out of the emotional rut which I had tossed myself in and search for a book which piqued my interest. Eventually, I stumbled upon the children's horror series called Goosebumps by R.L. Stine, which I am sure some of you in the audience have heard of before. I remember that it was early December, at the very end of the school day, when everyone from my class had begun shuffling into the hallway. But, for some reason, I lingered and began to eye the shelves of my classroom's miniature library. I then selected a random book and was surprised to find a shrunken head with huge bulbous eyes staring back at me from the cover. Now, I had always had a fascination with the macabre or the unusual, so I instantly stuffed it into my bag and trotted to the cafeteria to be picked up. This particular Goosebump was the first chapter book I had ever successfully read and was titled How I Found My Shrunken Head. The story enthralled me as I followed the protagonist Dana to the tropical island of Belladora, where he searches for his aunt with the help of a magical shrunken head. Now, I know the plot may be a little ludicrous, but to my second grade self, the mixture of horror, cliffhangers, and humor which permeated the text made me hooked. I was like, oh yeah! I then dedicated myself to collecting every Goosebump book I could get my hands on by scouring eBay for the best deals. This resulted in me acquiring over 113 Goosebumps, which have been scattered across my bedroom shelf since the years I have purchased them. However, in retrospect, this sudden R.L. Stine-inspired pandemonium, which sparked my love of knowledge, was mostly due to how I related my own struggles to that of the characters which I voraciously read about. For two common themes in the series are children triumphing over evil or facing hard situations and using their own wit and imagination to overcome them. So, in a way, I was inspired to face my own demons of apprehension and self-loathing in order to become the person I am today. Now that my speech is wrapping up, I would like to impart the lessons which I have learned in my pursuit of literacy. Persistence and hope are what allow us as human beings to trudge forward in the quest of happiness when things look their bleakest, for you only begin to fail once you admit defeat. There is going to be conflict in your life, and once you inevitably come face to face with it, you must not rob yourself of the time spent toiling away avoiding it. In the words of Winston Churchill, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. In other words, rewards are given to those who, armed with hard work and courage, harness the untapped potential in themselves, which is just waiting to be discovered. I hope you will find the courage to discover yourself just as I did. Thank you.